talk about how do we keep our pets healthy, um, primarily because veterinary medicine, like a lot of our other systems and institutions and ways of doing thing, is literally on a downward spiral. Um, I attribute this mainly to the corporate buyout of veterinary medicine. The big money people, and we're talking like BlackRock type investor people, giant corporations like Mars and Nestle, set their sights on veterinary medicine. Goodness, it was probably like 10 to 15 years ago. And they realized that it was a multi-billion-dollar industry on what people were willing to spend on their pets. And so just as they're out there buying up houses and making it very difficult to go into home ownership at this point in time, believe me, I'm trying to, and it's very difficult. Um, they bought up all the small veterinary clinics, mom and pop veterinary clinics. And so now we have VCAs and Banfields and Blue Pearls. They also inserted themselves into the veterinary schools and the teaching universities. So it has diluted down our um, research. It has diluted down what young veterinarians are being taught in vet school. They are really not coming out with a lot of the skills that I ended up learning while I was in vet school. Every week now, I see, if not one, multiple cases. Recently, I had a young 6-month-old poodle with an abscess on its neck, and they had to spend a half a day at the clinic deciding whether to call in the medical management team or the surgical management team in order. And I said, well, can't you just put the dog under anesthesia, go in there, lance it, flush it, drain it, do all the things? And they're like, oh, no, we don't do that anymore. It has to go to surgical, and they're not going to be in for 2 to 3 days. And we have to run a CAT scan before we can do that. So one little problem that could be solved pretty much like on the spot with like a 15-minute, 20-minute procedure turns into a multi-day event. I also know people going through cancer with their animals, and having to get, before they can even see the surgeon, they have to get clearance from the oncologist, which means they have to spend, $10,000 on every single scan and test out there in the world, and before they can even go in and take the mask off the dog. So it gets very expensive. It gets very frustrating. And it's just a really kind of almost untenable situation we're dealing with. So the best thing you can do is do whatever you can to keep your pets healthy so that they don't end up in these situations. I mean, they always, no matter what we do, sometimes things happen. Okay. I know people who have their dogs, there's no vaccines, no dewormers, have had them on raw food, They've checked all the boxes. They've done everything they possibly could, and the dog still ends up with chronic illness. But that is also part of life. That is part of living in a body, whether we have a human body, whether we have a dog body, or whether we have a cat body. Okay. But there are things we can do to prevent that from happening. Now, one concept that I'm going to bring up is, before we had this mega corporate system that we had to go through, all these specialists and all these tests and all these scans and all this stuff to even get one little thing done. When people, human beings, were still living an agricultural lifestyle. They were growing their own food. They were living in small villages. There were people, there was the wheat farmer, and there was a goat farmer, and there was, everybody had a milk cow in their backyard. Our ancestors, so to speak. And this could be Asian ancestors. This could be European ancestors. This could be North American ancestors. All of these people lived on the land, and they knew that in order to survive, They had to live not just on the land and extract things off the land. They had to live with the land. They had to live with all of the other organisms around them, the trees that provided shade and provided acorns and provided wood to burn, the grasses, the weeds, the herbs that provided medicine during different times of years, the animals that lived there. So we're talking everything from birds to insects to predators that they had to protect themselves from to prey species, which ended up being food, not just for the predators, but for themselves. How to protect their livestock from predation. And they were very, very, very in tune with the seasons of the year. And they developed whole um, systems around the seasons of the year. Now, the seasons of the year are dependent upon Earth's and its position in relation to the sun and in relation to the moon. So there are solar cycles and there are lunar cycles. And depending upon the angle of the sun to the earth, because the earth sits on a 23-degree angle on its axis, that angle determines those seasons. So the coldness of winter, the warming up of spring, the heat of summer, and the cooling down of fall. And when to survive on the planet, you had to know, okay, it's summer now and all of this good stuff is happening and it's nice and warm, but it's going to be winter soon. So we need to prepare for that. We need to bring in the harvest. We need to stock up on food when it's icy cold outside. So this was actually a matter of literal physical survival. Now, we don't have to think about that too much. We've got it really, really easy. We can control our whole internal atmosphere and climate with heat and with air conditioning and open the windows, closing the windows, things like that. And back in the day, they didn't have as much of that. They did control their environment, but not like we do. So we have gotten so far away from living in the natural world that we have forgotten a lot of these things. Now, these systems that were built up, one of them that we still have relatively intact because they wrote everything down in books, in ancient, thousands of years books and manuscripts, is traditional Chinese medicine. And the ancient Chinese and the ancient Taoists the Taoists in particular were looking at immortality and a way to live forever. Now, some people, I happen to believe that they could live very long physical lives, but then that just kind of blended into their spiritual life and the immortality of their spiritual life. That's a whole philosophical discussion. But they had a system that they called the 5 phases. And they recognized by very, very closely observing nature and observing the seasons and observing the animals and the movements, observing the temperature, observing the wind, the humidity, the tastes of things, like when things were in season, when herbs, when plants, when fruits and vegetables were in season, what did those taste like and what did those do in the body and what organs were associated with all of those. So it was a giant map. The 5-element cycle is like a giant map of the whole entire web of life as it moves through time, like through seasonal cycles, and as it moves through our bodies and through our animals' bodies and through our dogs' bodies and our cats' bodies. So that gives us a big clue on how to stay healthy, because the Taoists believed if you are living in balance with your outer environment, and I'm talking the outer environment like the trees behind me, the sun, I've got a planter of grass here, I've got a little potted herbal garden outside, which I'm just about ready to redo because fall is spring in Florida. All of these things, if we're living in balance with our environment, then we are going to be healthier and we are going to live longer. So it gives us tons and tons of clues. Now, when I first started my house call practice 25 years ago, I actually named it Dr. Josie's 5 element animal wellness because the system of the 5 elements would just intrigue me. Like I know in my soul, in my bones, how important that is. And I have a whole online Mighty Network community where we track through the elements while they're happening in our lives and learn different plants, different foods, different herbs. This year we are doing Taoist stone medicine, so different stones, flower essences, things like that that can support our organs and support our bodies during the time of the year when we're here. Hey, Maria, I'm jabbering about the 5 elements. So right now we happen to be in um, the element of metal, which is always happens in autumn and fall. Okay, it's between late summer, earth element, and winter, which is the water element. So when we're in the metal element in fall, there's certain things according to the 5 elements that correspondences that happen. So the organs associated with the element of fall, and if you just think about this kind of using common sense and what happens, are the lungs and the large intestine, which are paired. Okay, so the lungs is our airways. It's breathing in. And we take in air, oxygen, cosmic chi on our in breath, and then we let it out on our out breath. So the energetic movement of the metal element is actually one of bringing things in and then letting them go. It's that rhythm. So we also let go of waste products through our large intestine. So we bring in cosmic chi and let go of waste products through our large intestine. The letting go happens to be the grief cycle as well. Just look at the trees this year. There's a dying off that happens. The trees let their leaves go. They fall to the ground and they decompose in the earth over the winter and make compost. But all those nutrients are absorbed back into the earth. So there's a taking in and a letting go. And grief happens to be associated with the lungs. We cry, we sob when we're sad. Okay, we literally our lungs can fill up with fluid and just when you have a really good hard cry. But having a really good hard cry can be a really wonderful way to detoxify your emotional system and just letting the tears flow. Tears are extremely healing. There's certain compounds in tears that actually make one feel better. So if you feel like crying this time of year, sit down and have a good cry. You know, this time of year is also associated with our ancestors, with those loved ones that we've lost that have moved on to the other world and are no longer with us in the physical. So it's a time to honor them and respect them. Sometimes we have little pockets of grief left over where we need to grieve them. We need to realize we really do miss them, and that'll bring up a lot of sadness. But it's better to express that. You can express it through art, through dance, through music. I expressed it by dressing up this Halloween and going out to a Day of the Dead celebration and honored my partner who died several years ago from an overdose. So it was, it was very healing for me to go out and do that and honor him on a different level because and it's good to do that with our animals as well. They're all with us all the time. Our memories live in our hearts, but they're also spiritually with us. And many of our loved ones we can call on for advice, for help, even our animals. Okay. So that's all part of the metal element. Now, after metal comes water, which is the winter time. And in terms of life stages, all of these elements correspond to life stages as well as seasons. So autumn is like our senior years. It's like the golden years. It's like the retirement years when you're slowing down, you go move at a slower pace. So it's a good time to slow down this time of year, to start going inward. The energy is moving in a yin direction down into the earth, down into our bodies. So even though it might be getting holiday season, I turn off all that. I go in, I start meditating, I start turning off the lights in my bedroom and lighting candles instead. I go into the dark, I go into my dream world and do a lot of inner work because that's what makes me feel better during this time of year. Now we're headed into winter. Winter is the time of dying. It's the geriatric years. It's palliative care. It's hospice. So as before we get into water, it's a really good time during the metal element to help start supporting and stabilizing our geriatric animals, those that we're not sure how much time they have left, because a lot of times those animals, they may not make it through the winter. Winter is a time of really going inward. They can go so far inward that they don't come back outward in the spring, and they just continue their journey inward and passing away and dying. Okay. So we can support them though, starting now. And a good way to work with the elements and an easy way to work with the elements is to do it with through food. Okay, so food is the basics of all healing. Food gives our bodies the building blocks so that it can heal, so that it can repair itself, so that it can stay in a good state. Okay, so when we're in the metal element, and I say this time of year, I start seeing two things I start seeing: upper respiratory infections and asthma flaring up. So dogs will get weepy eyes, lots of sneezing. I've had a lot of strange cases this just in the past couple weeks of nasal problems, of eye problems. So really bad severe conjunctivitis. I had a dog show up with a mass behind the nasal cavity extending up behind the globe of the eye. So anything upper respiratory and respiratory. So just kennel cough, viruses in cats, upper respiratory viruses in cats. So things that can help support and head these off, start up some vitamin C, start up some immune boosters like some colostrum if you're not already doing raw milk products. Um, so support that upper respiratory tract and the kennel cough. So you might want to even do like a week on and off of echinacea. You might want to do, that's why a lot of people do elderberry syrup right now. Things to bolster the immune system. The mushrooms are great. So any kind of mushrooms and the beta glucans to get the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant stuff going and rolling now. Um, then in terms of water, so we have upper respiratory infections, URIs, and then when we move into water, we end up seeing UTIs, urinary tract infections, because water, the organs associated with that are the bladder and the kidneys. So I see a lot of urinary tract infections in the fall as soon as the temperatures start cooling off. Okay, so if you have an older animal that's prone to chronic urinary tract infections, things I like to use are D-mannose and cranberry extract. Um, Adored Beast has a great product called Easy Peasy Powder, which has all of that in there. And the D-mannose is a sugar that surrounds the bacteria and keeps them from being able to attach to the wall. And the cranberry as well helps flush them out so the bacteria don't get lodged in the bladder. Also, lots and lots of fluids. Bone broths are great this time of year. It's soup time of year. So we naturally gravitate to warm broths and warm soups. But that warm broth and that warm liquid going in will help flush our kidneys out. And the bone broth, the kidneys in Chinese medicine rule the bones. So the bone broth will help support the bones. So what do we see in older animals? They're stiff joints. They get achy, especially when it gets cold out. They're more prone to urinary incontinence and UTIs. Um, they can have arthritis. So what they need is warming support. So bone broths, warm proteins, beef, which is neutral, lamb is a warming protein. You can add a little bit of ginger in. You could add a little bit of garlic into their food. For the water element in winter, the taste is salty. So adding a little bit of kelp, adding a little bit of sea algae in there, the oh, the adored beast phytonutrients, the algae is really good. And also the kidneys hold the life essence, which is called the jing in Chinese medicine. And the jing is very precious. The jing is like our seed of life that sits in our kidneys. And things that can nourish that jing include eggs, which I love whole eggs. Okay, so you can boil an egg and crush the thing, shell and all. You can scramble eggs in a bit of ghee or real butter, which is really good for them. Eggs are a great protein that's easy to digest. It's easy on the kidneys, and it's going to nourish that kidney jing. So it can be chicken eggs, duck eggs, quail eggs. Reishi mushroom is like the number one jing tonic. So start your reishi this time of year. Organ meats that are filled with different vitamins and minerals. Now, the emotion associated with water element is fear. It's really the ultimate fear that we all have being a living organism on this planet is death. So all fears can really be traced back to the fear of death. We often fear I'm sitting across the table right now from my 20-year-old cat, who is just my love of my life. And I fear her dying, if I'm honest. I know she's going to. I know it's leading up to that, but it brings up both grief from the lungs and tears in the eyes and fear. And when we lose a loved one of ours and we watch them die and we watch them decline, we also start questioning our own immortality. It mirrors back to us the fact that none of us are going to live forever, right? And so these are really, really deep philosophical, whole religions are based on answering these types of questions. Okay. So it's pretty heavy, deep stuff. But it's a time to go in and reflect and contemplate. If you have a spiritual practice, if you have a meditation practice, this is the time of year to really delve into that and find some peace in your heart. Okay. So foods for the lungs, a lot of foods for the lungs are there's color associations with all of these elements, and the color for the lung is white. So any kind of white foods. So pears are great, and they're in season this time of year. Walnuts, pork, which tends to be a whiter protein, radishes. The taste for the lungs and large intestine is a pungency. So radishes and turnips, those white root vegetables. Cauliflower is a good vegetable for the lungs. And then in terms of the water, the color for the water is dark blues, blacks, and purples. So purple sweet potato. Um, and again, those salty type vegetables and warming proteins. And anything black, we talk about black sesame seed and black beans, which I don't really think black beans are good for dogs and cats. But again, the organs, like actually feeding the kidney, the organs that are filled with dark purple blood, those types of things are great for them. So if we start out, number one, giving our animals really, really good nutrition, as clean as we possibly can, and species appropriate, which means usually high protein, ground bone or bones to chew on, plenty of organ meats, 10%. There's an 80-10-10, which is a basic guideline. But if we start them out on as best a diet you can afford. Now, a lot of people, I can't afford raw. I can't afford raw. Can you afford buying $100 bag of kibble and then having to go into your veterinary office 3 to 4 times because of diarrhea, digestive problems, IBD, hot spots, ear infections, skin infections at $500 to $1,000 a pop? That $500 to $1,000 can buy an awful lot of dog food. And if you do it right, if you go on sales and you do some DIY, you can fill in the holes in their diet and you're actually gonna save money in the long run, and not only are you gonna save money in the long run, you're gonna save emotional stress in the long run because your animal is not gonna be sick. When we have a sick animal, it's like having a sick baby, and it's very, very emotionally stressful. I mean, I deal with people every day and with the emotional stress of a sick animal. So think about it that way. And you can also, there's great recipes out there. Dr. Judy Morgan's Yin and Yang 2.0, she went through and balanced out each one of those recipes. And they're recipes of with ingredients that are super easy to find in the grocery store. Okay. It's not a big deal. So, and she also has ingredients that are specifically recipes that are specifically for like water element, kidney imbalances, lung imbalances, metal element. So if you want help with any of this, I'm available for consultations. Also, right now my class usually begins in the spring and runs all the way through until the next spring. So I will not be starting up another class until next spring. I may be structuring it a little bit different next year with a little bit lower price point so that more people can come in and join. But if you want to really learn about traditional Chinese medicine and learn about the five elements, learn acupuncture points and ways to help your animals live healthier, um, you can join me here. I'll be putting announcements next spring when it happens. I also have, if you are a patient of mine and you do, I, these are for people who have done consultations with me. So at least an initial consultation, because I need to get to know you and I need to get to know your pet really well. Then you can join me for it's $29.99 a month, and you have text message access to me. Okay, so when questions come up, if you have things that you want to run by me, you will have granted subscription text access to me, but you have to become a client first. Ways to do that: you can direct message me on here, and I can set you up. We can schedule something in my calendar. And then I also have I'm throwing this out there because I think this is one of the best things any of us can do for our own healing, to be able to be as present and grounded and centered for our loved ones, is a meditation class, a meditation circle I hold on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we have a really good group, and it's a non-denominational, just sitting in stillness and letting things go. Just sitting in stillness and getting to know our inner world and getting to know our inner mind and watching our breath. It's been serving as a very, very good anchor point for all of us during these huge times of transformation we're in. So if you're interested in that as well, you can always DM me and I can send you the link. Maria, yes, our meditation class. So I miss you. So anyways, all of that is going on, and it's a way to get us back in touch with nature. And I'll tell you, I have some students. Well, Steffi has been a student in my class, and um, it's slow medicine, and it's a slow process. It's not something you're going to learn in a weekend workshop. It's not going to something you're going to learn at a one shot deal. It's a slow process, and as we move through the year and through these elemental changes and energetic changes, it starts awakening your own inner intuition and your own inner knowing that we all of us carry in our own bones from our ancestors. And then that stuff starts coming out, and you start experiencing synchronicities in your life and making connections and things showing up like you would never believe would show up before. So, I miss you too, Maria. I see you all the time. It's like we have an Instagram relationship, and we need to get together. We've got to get together at least and go to the tea house. So, We've been down here, what, it's like a half an hour, so I am going to go in. I had a whole bunch of herbs that I grew out on my little patio out here, and they were drying, and I ended up processing them all yesterday. I cleaned off all the stems and the leaves and bottled them up and labeled them, and I'm going to make some calendula-infused beef tallow today for dogs and cats. I've been wanting to try to infuse some beef tallow that I have with calendula just to see how it works. And I every night as a bedtime snack, I give my 20-year-old cat some homemade beef tallow. We rendered it. My roommate Tom rendered it, and from organic beef roast. So it's really, really yummy, and she loves it. And it's a great um white chasing lime swallowtail. Oh, wow. Wow. A swallowtail, butterfly? Oh, wow, cool. Take a picture of it. See what I mean? There's so many things there. So, um, yeah, beef tallow is a great remedy for hairballs in cats, and I take it and feed it to her like a churu. I just put it on my finger and she licks it off my finger. Yeah, a butterfly, swallowtail butterfly. Oh, very cool. That's exciting. Um, we don't see as many butterflies and bees and things like that out anymore. All right. So go outside if you can, sit under a tree, ground, ground this time of year. This is the time of year to really allow your body, allow your energy to go down into the tap roots, into the ground below you, and really connect in with the earth and go inside. Give yourself a few moments every day and in sitting in the darkness, just meditating on a single candle flame, just going within and allowing emotional stuff to come up that you need to process, to allow it to come up and leave. This is the time of year to do that. Next year, we're going to be leaf peeping up north. Ah, very cool, Kimberly. That'll be fun. Yeah, we gotta get outside, and the dogs just let your dog take you on a walk, like, through some woods. We have a great park here called Treetops Park, and I let Buddy and when Molly was still alive, they took me on a walk. I didn't take them on a walk, and we discovered all kinds of cool things. The dogs will smell stuff out, they'll find mushrooms, they find all kinds of good stuff out in the park. So, let your animals guide you a little bit. Spend like a lazy afternoon with your cat in bed. That's my favorite thing to do. So, oh, that's nice. Yeah, my trail down here is about 2 miles, so I'm gonna take Buddy out tomorrow. It was just too hot again this morning. I was gonna go out this morning, and it's just too hot and humid, but, it's good to get out again. So, and I will be putting up I did put up on Substack, I did put up a whole, write-up on upper respiratory and supporting the metal element and the lungs and respiratory remedies that are easy to have on hand. A lot of you probably already have them in your herbal cupboards, and you can start those up on your animals now as prevention. And get out your bone broth. Start making up some bone broth and freezing it to give during the winter months. It's one of the most nourishing, best things. It's good for the gut, but it's also good for the bones. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I know there's a lot of information and I can get talking on a ton of information, but it was good to see everybody. And I'll be back hopefully next Saturday. So take it easy. Give your animals a big, big hug for me. Thank you.